Getting feedback from other writers. This episode, a conversation with Doug Langille of Writers Carnival.
Writers Carnival isn't about developing a readership per se. I mean, it happens. But it's about sharing and improving the craft between writers.
I'm Chris Well, and this is DIY Author. You're an author. Maybe you're taking the traditional route. Maybe you've chosen an independent path. Or maybe you want the best of both worlds. Wherever you want to go as a writer, DIY Author is here to help you on your journey with advice, encouragement, and practical tips. Because do it yourself doesn't have to mean do it alone. Welcome to DIY Author. I'm your host, Chris Well. My guest this episode is Doug Langille of Writers Carnival, an online community for writers of all types, whether you write fiction, nonfiction, poetry, or even scripts. The site offers a chance to share your content, get feedback from other writers, participate in discussions, contests, and writing challenges, and even get published in the Readers Carnival e-zine. Doug Langille is an author who serves as a committee member on Writers Carnival. In our conversation, Doug shares the value in joining a community of other writers, how Writers Carnival helps authors reach out to new readers, and why the site's social contract makes it work for everyone in the community. Here's that interview. Hello, and now I'm speaking with Doug Langille from the Writers Carnival. Hello, Doug. Welcome.
Hello.
Writers Carnival is an online community where writers can post original stories and poetry and articles, and they get to review each other's work. Doug, as I check out the website at writerscarnival.ca, it appears to be a cross between a type of social network and a kind of Wattpad. But the selling point is that all the readers are fellow writers. Is that a fair assessment?
Well, it's pretty close. I mean, it leans more towards social network and less Wattpad-like, though. The primary target membership is writers, by writers and for writers, and all that jazz. Writers post their work to receive reviews and to help them improve their craft. The conversations on the individual pieces and in the activity feed is actually where the magic happens.
How did the Writers Carnival get started?
Well, when I joined Writers Carnival in April of 2013, the site was only about a month old. I asked the founder at the time, Anissa, why she'd dare to start yet another writing site. She said it came down to wanting a true community that was a home for people to both learn and grow as a writer. Her vision of a place where the members actually believed that the site cares about them as a person and not just like a number or an account. It was, For her, it's all about trust, and I think she pulled it off quite well.
How big is the community?
It's about 2,100 members and growing pretty steadily.
Now, what is your role with the Writers Carnival?
Well, I'm a member of the admin team. I keep pulse on the community and help other people as needed. There are about 6 of us, including Anissa, from across the continent and in the UK. We do a bunch of background stuff too, contests and prompts and article writing, the whole gamut.
Now, when I go to the front page here, there are all different directions I could go, but if we just start with talking about the content, there are channels for all different kinds of content. There's for blogs and nonfiction, there's all different kinds of fiction, fantasy, horror, humor, romance, and then you also have a section for poetry. What seem to be the most popular categories on the site?
Well, it ebbs and flows in popularity, the categories and genres. Sometimes it's young adult, and sometimes it's fan fiction, and sometimes it's romance. Horror and fantasy tend to get a lot of posts, as does poetry and the ubiquitous general category.
Yeah, when you say a lot of posts, do you mean a lot of content or a lot of people talking about the content?
A little bit of both. I mean, every piece gets quite a few replies and reviews on it, right? So people are mostly interested in what's popular, which is fantasy, young adult, and horror and all that.
And as I'm clicking through the way that it's structured, it looks to me as a newbie that the way the content is presented favors a writer who's kind of winging it from segment to segment. Do you know, or do you find out from these writers, are they working from outlines, or are they posting a segment, waiting for feedback, and then based on that feedback writing the next thing?
Well, there's many approaches being used, and some writers are actually following a chapter plan and of a work that they haven't had published yet. And some writers are indeed just winging it. It's that whole pantsers versus plotters thing. Most of the pieces up there are short fiction, so the planning is considerably simpler.
Okay. Now, one of the intriguing points of the site is that a writer, it says somewhere that if you're going to post original content, that you must participate, you must give feedback on other people and participate to be allowed to add your own stuff. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, in general, the writers pick up on that whole social contract thing pretty quick. If I want to get reviews, then I have to review other people. And we encourage about a 3-to-1 ratio, for every post you put up that you give a good 3 reviews. Sometimes we have to remind writers from time to time to review, but we rarely actually get pushback. The buy-in is quite high.
Oh, good. So now you mentioned that a lot of it is short fiction. Are there people posting novels?
Well, yeah, we do.
Now, if I showed up and I had whether it's a novel or I guess even there's a nonfiction category, so it could be a book, and I see you have a screenplay category. If I show up with a whole complete work, do I post it as a whole thing or do I post it in pieces? What do I do with that?
Well, we have some thresholds in place so that individual writers don't overwhelm the site with their own content. So we permit 2 posts per day, with each post being no more than 1,500 to 2,000 words. So authors with longer stories, they have to break them up and post them in installments. We recommend that they put a little tiny synopsis at the top of each post to help those that are just dropping in and out of the stories. People don't necessarily read all of them, right? Mm-hmm. There have been several novels up there, but the shorter works do tend to attract more reviews. I guess it's really important to keep in mind that Writers Carnival isn't about developing a readership per se. I mean, it happens. But it's about sharing and improving the craft between writers.
Are there any of the categories that you wish had a stronger presence or that more people were participating?
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, there are many categories that have low representation. Westerns, for example, steampunk. And I think these sort of ebb and flow with the market and in general interest. The way I look at it, the more variety, the better. But we don't want to focus on any particular genre, so we just encourage bring it all.
So in addition to I can post original content, I can get feedback on my content, is that Writers Carnival has contests. Can you talk about what some of the contests are like?
Well, we run several contests every month, and they're usually centered around writing exercises or some sort of theme. We run contests from time to time about reviewing, quantity or quality of reviews and such. We offer some cash prizes, sometimes a book, editing services, or even publishing. And we do partner from time to time with other writing sites and e-zine on contests.
And then the site also features writing prompts. What are those like?
Well, they're fun. And they're meant for breaking through writer's block by and large, or inspiring creativity, because writers have to write, right? Mm-hmm. One of my favorites is, a child is picking daisies, write a conversation between 2 of the daisies, where one wants to be picked and the other doesn't. Why and what do you think will happen? Just things to tease the brain out.
And then there's a couple of buttons here on the site there's a Power Hour and there's a Wednesday Weeklies. Could you explain what those are?
About once a month, we run an hour-long event called a Power Hour, where we sort of release quick writing challenges every 15 minutes. Writers have to respond to each challenge and then review the other ones in that time frame. It's quite frenetic. It's a real brain stretch. And at the end, we award badges to the participants. But ultimately, it's just fun.
And then I noticed there's also an e-zine, Readers Carnival. What is that like?
Well, we recognized last fall that there was a gap. Many of our writers are unpublished, and we thought that this was a great way to help them, build a backlog of material. Also, many other writing sites are quite insular and can become an echo chamber quite quickly. We didn't really want that to happen, so we wanted to reach out to a broader audience. And sharing the best of the work that's in Writers Carnival seemed to be the best way to do it.
And so is it, are people writing content specifically for the zine, or is it cherry picking content that was on the site?
It's a little bit of both. Often the monthly contest will be targeted towards a future issue of Readers Carnival. Like, for example, in May, we ran a couple of contests around our June issues theme, in Jeepers Creepers, right? So, we do target some of the contests towards making sure that there's appropriate content for the Readers Carnival themes of the month. But we also will go back to the archives and pick and choose, and sometimes members will recommend other members' work to whatever makes the best sense.
Given that Writers Carnival and Readers Carnival are kind of oppositely directed, I guess is the way you'd say it. It's like, Readers Carnival is getting the writers in front of readers. What kinds of things are you doing to promote Readers Carnival to people who have no interest in Writers Carnival, but like, oh, this is our audience? How are you finding those people?
Well, it's by and large through two main ways. One of which is through the social networking fashion. We are tweeting out the stories and such, and we're marketing in that particular way that most e-zines would do such. And then we also ask that the writers that do get published, that they take stewardship and ownership of their own marketing. If I'm going to have my story published in Readers Carnival, then I have some responsibility to make sure that I'm marketing and promoting my own work. So there's a bit of learning in there as well. I mean, that's what you have to do in the real publishing industry, right?
What else do you want listeners to know about Writers Carnival?
Really just simply, if you want to improve your craft, you could do far worse than joining Writers Carnival. I mean, we believe that it offers a great balanced community where we can all learn. It doesn't matter your skill or experience. We got pros and beginners both here. So, just join.
How do people join?
Well, you go to www.writerscarnival.ca and you click the become a member button and you sign up. It's self-registration. The basic free membership allows you to work with the social features of the site. You can post a status update, you can respond and review other people's work, and you can participate in like the weekly Wednesday contest that we have as an open contest. Paid membership is required to post, to have your work reviewed.
Okay, now let's turn to you specifically as an author. What are the kinds of things that you write?
I write largely short fiction. I think the form is alive and well, and it's not lucrative, but I like to mix and remix the genres in that format quite often. I write dark stuff, not always evil and nasty, but it's usually got a dark twist to it.
And I noticed when I was on your website, you're on Patreon, which I think is exciting. What could you share some of your experiences working with Patreon? Well,
Patreon's an interesting place. I was in a collection that was published through CreateSpace Amazon last fall. And it was, it was successful. I mean, we got lots of reviews, didn't sell a lot, but I mean, most independently published books don't actually sell a lot of copies. But it was more very much a project. Here's a book. Patreon is more about, you want to be able to support an artist. And because I write a lot of short fiction, I thought that might be an interesting way to monetize some of my regular writing activities.
And I guess just for people who don't know the difference, it is a crowdfunding model, but unlike a Kickstarter model where it's a one-time, it begins, it ends. Patreon is an ongoing thing. So like if I were to fund you through Patreon, it wouldn't be a one-time thing. I mean, am I understanding this correctly? It's not a one-time thing. I'm paying you. It's either per item or on a monthly basis. Is that how that works?
Yep, that's exactly how it works. I mean, you can set up different kind of models, but you can be a patron of my craft with $1 a month or $1 a short story. I mean, it's they're pretty low cost kind of items. The idea is that anybody could be a patron, not just the rich prince of the Renaissance period.
So how do you, once you start a Patreon campaign, how do you go about telling people about it?
Well, that's the tricky part, isn't it? There is no easy button. You still have to have personal agency for your own marketing. You have to promote your Patreon site. You have to tweet it out. You have to get it on social networks. You have to tell people about it. I haven't done a very good job of that myself on my own Patreon. Ergo, I don't have a lot of patrons. But that's on me, and I know that. There's no easy button. It just requires work.
And then this being a ongoing kind of crowdfunding model, is the way that you've set it up, do you have an end in mind, or is it you literally have set this up in such a way that you can just keep doing it as long as you want to do it?
And that's the way I have it set up, as a very, very fancy donate button, if you want to look at it that way, right? Mm-hmm. It's an ongoing thing.
So how is, for you as a writer, how has Writers Carnival helped you personally as a writer?
Well, I've been writing off and on for about 20 years. And it wasn't until I joined a writing community that I was able to, take what was essentially a hobby and turn it into a passion. In the last year, I've been publishing an anthology. I started an e-zine, and I put together the real bones for a couple other publishing endeavors. I'm a much better writer now than I was even a year ago, and I wouldn't have done any of that without Writers Carnival.
So if someone wants to check out Writers Carnival, where do you think they should start? Like if you're giving them the tour and they're like, okay, you're brand new, you're coming in the front door, where should they go first?
Well, they should go to the website and sign up, of course, at www.writerscarnival.ca, and there's a join button. And they should, participate and look at some of the status feeds and respond and socialize a little bit. And then join the weekly Wednesday contests because they're free for unupgraded members. So join in, answer the writing prompt, the writing challenge that's there, and get feedback on your work for free. And that's be the great way to start.
All right. Well, Doug Langille at douglangille.ca from Writers Carnival at Writers Carnival CA. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Hey, no problem. Thank you.
This has been DIY Author. Please visit us online at DIYauthor.com and be sure to sign up for our email newsletter. If you enjoyed this program, please consider subscribing and leaving a review. Until next time, keep writing. And remember, do it yourself doesn't have to mean do it alone.